access immediately. We have a ton of, I do a lot of palliative care, so I can tell you that if patients in hospice, they don't have time to be able to, to come in for tons of visits, and it's important to provide compassionate access to these folks that are truly sick and debilitated.
All right. Vice Chair Placencia, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this question is for Mr. Bax, and I'm looking at the text of Amendment 2, and I guess my concern and my question would be, how open-ended and is, it says here, other debilitating medical conditions of the same kind or class, as or comparable to those enumerated for which a physician believes the medical use. That seems to me that a physician has, under this language, the ability to prescribe for just about anything. Is that the case?
You're recognized, Mr. Bax.
Thank you, Chair. I think the way that you said that is fair. I would say moving forward, this is certainly going to be an issue as to defining exactly what similar, class, or kind, or comparable means. One potential option would be seeking guidance from the Board of Medicine on standard of care and helping clarify for physicians who are trying to legally work with their patients with medical cannabis to have guidelines on what those words actually mean. But your question is a good one, and it is something that is going to have to be fleshed out as we move forward, and we would welcome guidance from the Board of Medicine on that issue.
Okay. Representative Fine, you're recognized for a question.
Thanks, and this question may have a follow-up. Is there any other medicine that doctors currently prescribe that you're aware of where they actually prescribe a plant as opposed to a pill?
Yeah, well, many of the medicines that we prescribe every day are based on plant medicine. So
I understand,
yeah,
but that is a plant.
But it's true botanical medicine. I mean, we have herbal preparations like St. John's wort and things like that that are definitely plant-based. But no, this is the first. And what was surprising to me was that the FDA was willing to allow whole plant cannabis through this drug development by approving our phase 2 trial and already talking to them about phase 3. They're demonstrating that FDA is open to the idea of whole plant as a medication, and they may do that. In other countries, we've already seen governments allow, you can see in Israel now where they have 8 licensed producers that are already filling cannabis through a pharmacy system. So, and they're literally, the patients will pick up an amber bottle with the flowering plant material in it.
So,
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll take that as a no. So my question is, as a businessman who created products, my products always had to be very consistent. Yeah. And Tylenol, it's the same pill, theoretically. What is the level of sort of variance, again, as someone who doesn't know much about healthcare? If I go and I get my marijuana, my medical marijuana, what sort of variation is there between this pickup and then the next one? I mean, I would think it's a plant, so you would think that it wouldn't be all that consistent as opposed to my prescription, which is going to be in a factory that's going to be very scientifically precise.
Right.
You're recognized, Dr. Sisley.
Yeah, I agree that we always strive in medicine. We strive for consistent medication treatment, but unfortunately with this, it's rare you're going to achieve consistency. It's really up to the patients to decide what they experience as consistency. So often patients will go on an exploration for a few months when they first start cannabis, where they will try different phenotypes of cannabis, maybe CBD-rich cannabis, maybe a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD, until they find that best fit for them, and then they will stick with it and try to. And that's why the beauty of Florida implementing this regulated market now is that they will finally have the opportunity to achieve some consistency, where they'll be able to have exquisitely lab-tested cannabis here that will enable them to follow the strain that they find most effective for them and be able to pursue that one strain in a specific retail space. Whereas Before we didn't have that. And for instance, that's one of the downsides in Arizona, where we don't require lab testing in Arizona. So it's kind of an absurd situation where we have, you know, the patients in a regulated market who don't even know the quality of the lab test. I mean, lab testing is available, but it's not mandated. And I'm really proud to see Florida implement such strict lab testing regulations. So I think we're getting closer to achieving the consistency that you're describing, but it's not there yet. But I think, again, that's one of the it's one of the challenges of a botanical medicine, but the botanical medicine also has a lot of upsides to it that I think outweigh the risk. The truth is that this plant has a very low toxicity. I mean, if you look at it's far less toxic than most of the prescriptions that I write for patients every day. And that's borne out in tons of clinical trials that show a very low incidence of adverse events. You can look at poison center data in the 20+ medical cannabis states. These poison control centers have immense amount of data looking at, for instance, in Arizona, we take 65,000 calls each year from our at the poison center, and generally under 100 calls are even related to cannabis. And when they are reported, they're very mild, short-lived illnesses. I feel dizzy, I feel nauseous, and they're short-lived, and they're usually, you know, easily treated over the phone, just giving them some counseling. So,
Representative Miller?